Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on university shortlisting. So, I am Radhika Mujumdar, Videsh career mentor and counselor, and today I am going to be talking all about how to shortlist your universities and which are the factors that will help you to make a correct decision about shortlisting. Okay, so I am on my screen showing you today's agenda where we will be going through first the university shortlisting rule, then we will talk about how to select the right country. We are also going to be talking about how to decide between master's and PhD and integrated PhD. I am going to be explaining to you the difference between these programs. We are also going to be talking a little bit about the funding, and then I am going to be taking you through a realistic timeline. Okay, we are also at the end going to be talking about some current political situations, especially in the US, and post study opportunities. That is, I'm going to just show you a vis a vis comparison between salaries, job opportunities in different countries. Okay, so make sure you stay with us till the end. And if you have any questions, just post your questions in the comments and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so let's begin. Yeah, so if today is your first time attending this webinar hosted by Videsh, I will let you know a quick recap about our team, our vision, and our co-founders. Okay, so our co-founders are Dr. Raj, Dr. Rajat, and Dr. Sridat, who are award-winning scientists and graduates, PhD graduates from MIT. IIT and Purdue University in the US. Okay, so at the time they were in their final years at IIT Madras and they wanted to apply to US for their PhDs and masters. They realized that there was no professional mentorship to guide them through the whole application process. There was nobody who could professionally tell them what is lacking in their application and how they can realistically proceed to build a strong application. There was no professional guidance. Okay, so all they had was help from some seniors who were gracious enough to help them and a few professors. So with that help, they navigated everything on their own, and they got admits. They got fully funded admits from MIT and Purdue, and that's how they pursued their PhD from the US. And then at the time, they thought that it is extremely essential to provide students guidance on how to professionally build their profile and provide a realistic timeline on how you can actually strengthen your profile. Okay, so with that aim they came back to India, and that is how Videsh was founded. Okay, so Videsh was founded approximately 3 years ago in 2022, and we've been working with a lot of students every year to help them build their applications and to land their dream universities. Okay, so this is a little something about us. These are a few photos of Team Videsh co-founders at their time at IIT, MIT, and Purdue. So let's dive in into the first topic, that is the university shortlisting. Okay, so how do you actually shortlist your universities? What is that one rule that will help you to shortlist your universities? That is actually the easy medium dream rule. Okay, so before we get into this rule, I would just ask you, or I would just encourage you to think about which programs you want to apply first. Okay, so what is that broad area in which you want to pursue your masters or PhD? Okay, so that is extremely important for you to know before you are selecting universities, right? It is important to know your domain in which you want to apply. Okay, because that has to be common and that has to be fixed, right? And then what you do is you make a big list of 25 to 35 universities, and then you start filling it or filling in all the information. Okay, at the end you shortlist 9 to 10 universities from that big list of 25 universities, and that will be your final list of universities. All right, so this is how you classify the universities based on easy, medium, and dream rule. Okay, so what you essentially do is easy universities are the universities that are easy for you to get into. The dream universities are uh, comparatively difficult and not that realistic for you to get into, but then the medium universities will hold a realistic chance of getting an admit from. Okay, so that is how you differentiate between easy, medium, and dream universities. Okay, So the information that you can see on the right hand side from column 3 onwards is basically all the information is available on the university website. Okay, so right from the deadline, LOR, GRE, minimum GPA, TOEFL, etc., QS university rankings, every information is available on the university website, right? And on the right hand side, rightmost column, you can see that there is a application link. Okay, so that is the link which will take you directly to your applications, and that is how you will be able to apply. Okay, so it's always better to start off with making a master list and then gradually shortlisting that master list to 9 or 10 universities. Okay, so column 2, as you can see, that column is basically very much difficult kind of. You should keep that column at the last. Okay, so what you should do is you shouldn't fill the column 2 at the very end now, and then you should you should think about filling that column probably in October or November, all right, when you've actually built the rest of your profile, right? So that is how you shortlist your universities, and this classification in the easy, medium, and hard universities is actually the most crucial point in choosing your universities. Okay, I am also going to be taking you through some of the other decisions and some of the other major things that impact you choosing an university of your choice. Okay, the first part is the country of choice. Okay, so what country you choose also depends upon a lot of factors, and that will immediately impact your university selection, right? Now, given the current political climate in the US, we don't usually recommend to select 9 or 10 universities entirely in the US, and we recommend you to make selections from 2 or 3 countries. Okay, so that is how we want to keep it. We want to keep other options open, and there are also a lot of good universities in other countries as well. Okay, so there are a lot of other factors that actually impact the university selection, and I'm going to be walking you through some of these factors, right? So the first factor is the country of choice. Okay, so before you decide which country you want to apply to, there are some of the things that actually make a very big impact on the country selection also. Okay, and here also I would say that the program you want to apply to plays a major role here. Okay, so that is how you should choose your country. The first and the foremost thing, important thing, is the courses offered. Okay, so the first thing is the if that country is offering the course you want to apply to. Okay, so that is how you make a sound decision. Then if that country is offering MS PhD or integrated PhD options, if whatever program you're looking for is available in that country, the tuition fees, of course, cost of living, and tuition fees, other expenses, etc., also need to be taken in consideration, because some countries or some cities, specific cities, are expensive to live in, and then some people also might get homesick. Hence proximity from home country also is a topic that might need to be considered. Okay, and then scholarships. Okay, so some countries provide scholarships. For example, if you are applying to an university in Germany, there are DART scholarships available that take the overall expense of a candidate, right from travel expenses to tuition cost, etc. So that also might be some of the things that you want to consider before putting in an application or selecting a university. Okay, and then of course the most important thing is the job opportunities. Okay, so once we graduate, all of us want to look for a good job opportunity that will probably be good enough, and then it will provide future prospects as well. Okay, and then visa restrictions. So countries like US have a strict visa policy. They have high visa scrutiny going on after Trump administration. So you might also want to look at a few of these things when you are looking for long term settlement. Okay, so long term settlement, that is PR, is something that you would want to consider if you are selecting a particular country, right? Talking about the US first, so US has more top rated schools as compared to any other country. Okay, so if you look at the top 100 QS university rankings, you will see that most of these universities are in the US. Okay, so that is a statistic which clearly shows that US has more top rated schools, right? then but then still, it is relatively difficult to settle in the US, right? So comparatively, if you look at it, it will be comparatively difficult because, like I said, since the Trump administration, it is comparatively difficult. The visa restrictions are tighter, and then long term settlement is a little bit difficult because of the visa issues. Okay. And then average tuition fees for average universities, average cities, is 45 to $50,000 per year. Now if you look at other top notch schools, top schools like MIT, Purdue, Princeton, Harvard, etc., CMU also, so then those universities will have higher tuition fees, so that will be higher than the normal average. Okay. And then there are also a few scholarships that you can apply to, and you can also apply for fellowships or TAs and RAs if you are applying to PhD programs. And then the main advantage of applying to US universities is that the job market and the salaries. Okay, so the job market is comparatively larger, the salaries are much higher. Okay, so I'm going to be taking you through this comparison in my later slides, but then I want you to remember this for now. Okay. Going to Europe, UK also. So first of all, UK has limited top schools. So Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial are some of the top schools in the UK, that come in the top 100 QS university rankings. UK is comparatively easier to settle in as compared to the US. As far as the PR is concerned, the visa restrictions are lenient, but then some cities are extremely expensive to live in, and there is high inflation that is happening for the past 2 3 years. Okay, so that is also a very important point that needs to be considered and is extremely important for you to know, because then it is also going to impact the overall tuition and your other expenses. So that is also something that you might want to consider. And then the number of job opportunities comparatively as compared to the US are much lower in that case, and the salaries are also comparatively lower. Okay. We then move on to Canada, where Canada is immigrant friendly. So, like most of you already must be knowing, Canada is immigrant friendly. It is comparatively easier to settle long term in Canada. The visa restrictions are not that tight, and it has a large community of Indian people. So but then the only disadvantage is that um, Canada provides basic wage jobs. Okay, so Canada is not actually providing jobs that have a higher designation or higher salaries, but then Canada generates more minimum wage jobs. Okay, and hence the salaries are also much lower, right? So that is something that you might want to consider. And also some people might feel homesick here because 6 to 8 months this country is covered in snow. Okay, so that is also a factor that you might want to consider. But then Canada also has very good universities and extremely high ranking universities, and universities that provide good financial aid also to good students, meritorious students. Okay, so that is a point that you might want to consider. Then we move to Australia. So in Australia also, there are a few universities that make it to the top QS 100 rankings. So Australian National University, University of Sydney, Melbourne, etc. Some people might say Australia is slightly a bit racist, but then that is something that can be ignored because work permits here are easy for international students, and it's like 3 years for masters and 4 years for PhD students. Like any other country, there is high cost of living in major cities, Sydney, Melbourne, etc. But then the number of jobs are good enough. Okay, so this is just a vis-a-vis comparison between the salaries, typical salaries for software engineers, for people who are getting software engineer jobs in different countries. Okay, so you can clearly see that US has significantly more salary as compared to the rest of the countries. Okay, so it is very clearly visible that US has more number of jobs and higher salaries as compared to the rest of the countries. Okay, now moving on to the point where you should decide which program you should consider. So if consider that you have already chosen your field of study and now you're confused as to which program, you should consider masters, PhD, or integrated PhD. Okay, so masters is basically a 2 year credit course. It is generally not funded. It can be converted into a PhD. Okay, so in case you are not sure if you want to do a masters, you should probably go for an integrated PhD, where you have an option of extending your masters to a PhD. But then generally, even if you go for typical masters, if you have good connections with professors, you can begin doing your PhD once you graduate from masters. Okay, and then for a full PhD course, it usually takes approximately 4 to 6 years. PhDs are usually funded, but then PhD candidates have to be extremely vigilant when they're applying, because the university is looking for specific set of students when they are intaking PhD applicants. And then you also need to have a very strong research background. Okay, so admission criteria generally for PhD students or integrated PhD students is that the research in work should align with the university. Your research work is, make sure that your research work is highlighted in your resume. Okay, and it is also mandatory that um, the university finds a good research fit. Okay, so that is extremely important. And then for masters, it's more of like a college program, where you have a number of credit courses, and then a coherent SOPLOR and resume is required for applications. And then work experience really stands out. But then if in addition to work experience, you also have a good research experience, that generally makes a very good case for masters applications. Okay, so that is a very good thing. So just a quick update on the funding. Okay, so when we say funding, it's not just only the tuition cost that is included in the funding. You also have to consider other things like health insurance, rent, living expenses, etc. And then you also have to consider um, the amount that you should show in your liquid funds if you're applying for student visa. Okay, so if you have probably taken a loan, or if you're applying for student visa, you need to show a minimum of $10,000 in your bank account when you're applying to visa. And also you need to consider other things other than the tuition cost if you are applying. Okay, if you are considering your expenses. Okay, and then these are some of the other things that help you with your funding, like the TA, RA, and fellowship. So teaching assistantship usually means you get to assist professors based on you can grade assignments for different students. You can participate in lectures, you can teach even in a few lectures. But then this TA aligns well with the masters, and then RA aligns well with the PhD applicants, because the research assistant is usually working alongside the professor in their research lab. And then for a research assistant, you can generally expect up to 2K stipend. And for fellowship, you can get up to 2.5K stipend, and you can get a partial or a complete fellowship. Okay, so the next thing is that which cohort you should apply to, whether you should apply for fall, whether you should apply for spring. So I'll just take you through a quick comparison between the fall and the spring cohorts. Okay, so the fall cohort begins in August, and the cohort size is usually larger. It is comparatively easier to get into a fall cohort because the size is larger, and it also aligns well with your summer internship. Okay, so that is usually that works in your favor, and the number of programs that are there in the fall cohort are also higher. Okay, so your chances of getting admitted in fall are much higher, right? In the spring, usually these programs begin in January. They have a comparatively smaller cohort, and the chances of getting admitted hence are much smaller. And then it is also possible that the program that you're looking for is not available in the spring cohort, because the number of programs that spring cohorts host is not much. So it is possible that your program is not there at all in the spring cohort. And then unless you have a specific reason to apply for spring, you should go ahead and apply for fall. Okay, I'm going to be talking about the current funding situation in the US. There has been a lot of speculation, a lot of news regarding the funding cuts, and everything that has been going on regarding the admits, PhD admits. or the PhD funding or the MS funding, or the MS admits, everything from the US. So basically, the funding has been affected in the healthcare and medicine sector majorly. But then we have also seen that some of the other departments are also rescinding their funding, and then funding cuts have been made also in the other departments. So currently, the funding situation is not so good in the US. But then after you go to the campus, that is when you can actually network with a few professors, and they will generally, after the funding is released in the next cycle, then they will be in a much better position to comment on that. Okay, so that is the overall funding situation. Current visa situation is that visa scrutiny is at its peak in the US. There are a lot of things that are being checked. A lot of things that you need to show as when you apply for student visa, and your documents need to be completely on point whenever you're applying for student visa. Okay, so consulate documents, admission, academic, financial documents, and then proof of finances, everything has to be immaculate. And there is no room for any mistake when you're applying for your student visa. Let's talk about the realistic timeline, a little bit, because this is something that is extremely important in the coming months. We are currently in July, and this is the time when you should start building your research profile. If you have not yet started, if you don't have any research paper, if you don't have any research projects, now is the perfect time to get started with that. In August, September, you can begin with the rest of the processes like university shortlisting, document preparation, SOP, resume, LORs, etc. And then November, December can be completely focused on researching about the university and applications. Okay, so that is the realistic timeline that you should be following. And then, long term mentorship also, we've had amazing results in the past 3 years for our long term mentorship. And this year also we have started guiding a lot of students. A lot of students are already in process of being guided. We have placed up to more than 100 students in different universities. You can see the complete list on our website, flyvidesh.com, and on that website you can also see video testimonials of a few students that have been admitted to different programs and have given their testimonials. Okay, so phase one basically focuses on identifying easy problem statements and helping you build a research profile, and then helping to set you a realistic timeline like the one that I showed you. So we are helping you to set a customized timeline based on your profile, and then we help you to figure out how to submit your research papers to different journals and conferences. Okay, so that is it about today's webinar. And phase 2 basically will focus on SOP, resume, LORs, university shortlisting, and portfolio website building. Okay, so this is the phase 1 and phase 2 of the long term mentorship program. And if you are interested in the long term mentorship program, or if you want guidance on how you can start with the application process, or in general if you want one to one counseling on how you can proceed in your grad school application journey, please send us an email at hello@flyvidesh.com, and we'll be there to guide you. Also, look forward to an update in for the rest of our webinars, because we'll be hosting a bunch of more webinars henceforth. So thank you very much, and looking forward to see you in the next webinar. Thank you.